folks, things are getting a little bit weird in fighting games when it comes to guest characters, right? So the other day, we finally got the trailer for Cristiano Ronaldo in Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, which already, this is kind of weird, right? Like, he's a real guy. And they put him in this game with, like, Terry Bogard and stuff. But, you know, he is one of the most famous athletes, one of the most famous people in general in the world. So I guess I could see why they would want him in the game. And also, you know, he's an athlete. So he's jumping around and running and, you know, he's very physical in what he does. So I guess I can kind of see why they thought he would be a good fit as a fighting game character. And yeah, even though he does look a little weird in the trailer, I would say his face is maybe a bit too, like, ordinary guy in this game where everyone is very anime and very cartoonish. He looks a little too normal, but overall, I didn't think this trailer was that bad. I'm definitely not going to play Ronaldo in City of the Wolves, like, no shot, but I'm not that mad at his inclusion in the game. But then just today, we saw another character who is Salvatore Ganacci. I don't know who this guy is. I'm going to be honest. Now, listen, I'm going to need you guys in the comments to tell me, is this guy not that well known in America and he's more popular in other countries and that's why I haven't heard of him? Or am I listening to the wrong kind of music, or is he just not that famous for most people? I don't really get it. I have no clue who this guy is other than the fact that he's a DJ. He's had some hits, I guess, but his Wikipedia page is honestly not that long. Like, it's not like there's this huge list of, like, gold plaques that this guy has. So I don't really get why this guy's in the game. And, you know, in addition to me not knowing who he is, also, he's a DJ, which is like, you know, DJs are cool and stuff, but why are they fighting? It's not like DJs are known for, like, their physicality. So, yeah, this guy's inclusion in the game is just baffling. And really, this got me thinking about guest characters in general. Have guest characters in fighting games gone too far? I saw some people really like this super animation, by the way. I guess it's kind of funny, but overall, yeah. I'm not going to play Ronaldo, and there's no shot I'm playing this guy. No offense to this man. You know, I do not know this man. No offense to this man, but I'm not going to be picking him in Fatal Fury. But what about some other guest characters? This got me thinking, because one of the Street Fighter greats right now, Big Bird, had tweeted the most whack DLC lineup I've ever seen. I hope Capcom redeems himself with Season 3. Give me Viper. And, you know, I'm not going to go so far as to say that this is the most whack DLC lineup I've ever seen. Overall, I think this season is not bad. I wish it was more than 4 characters, but it's not that bad. But then his follow-up tweet, 50% of a character lineup being guest characters, despite the Street Fighter universe being so big, is considered awesome. I have no words. And I have to say, I kind of agree. You know, there are so many Street Fighter characters that are not in Street Fighter 6 that are beloved by many. We got Makoto, Dudley, Sea Viper, like a million. Necro, my boy, put Necro in. Literally any character from Third Strike, because right now there aren't any. You know, Ibuki, Sakura, like there's Hakan. There's so many, right, that are not in the game. And I'm not, you know, going to be a hater and say I don't like that they included the Fatal Fury characters, Mai and Terry, because I think they fit well in the game, and they're pretty fun to play. So I'm not going to be a major hater, but I think overall I am disappointed at the fact that we are, you know, only getting 4 characters a year, which is a pretty small number, and half of that is guest characters when there are so many Street Fighter characters that I really want to play that are not in 6 yet. And I'm sure new characters as well could be cool to be added, but instead we're getting these crossovers. So have guest characters and crossover characters gone too far in fighting games? This is really something that we're kind of seeing across genres, don't you think? Like, some of you guys who have watched my channel for a while might know that there's another game that I really like to play besides fighting games, which is Magic the Gathering. And this has been something that everyone's been complaining about in Magic the Gathering now, is that, like, there are almost more crossover sets now than there are Magic sets. You know, we had Fallout, we had Warhammer, we had Lord of the Rings, Marvel, and now we have Final Fantasy coming. It feels like, you know, Magic has kind of become like Fortnite or something, where it's just got, you know, it's got Goku in there. It's got all this stuff. So, yeah, is this just like what every game is going to be like, where they realize that they sell more if they include these crossovers than if they try to build their own brand, you know? I found it a little bit weird that this has become such a common direction. So I don't really know how to feel about it. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit hypocritical. Like, I'll make fun of these collabs all I want, but as soon as there's one that I really care about, I actually buy it. You know, I bought the Street Fighter cards for Magic. You know, when they release something that really appeals to my niche, yeah, I'll go out and buy it. So maybe everyone's like this, you know, so they just have to release stuff in every niche to try to catch every possible consumer, and that's why we're getting the football player in City of the Wolves, and we're getting the musician in City of the Wolves. I don't know, but I wanted to talk about what were some crossovers in fighting games that actually worked, that I actually think were really good and really well done and added to the game, and what were some crossovers that definitely didn't work, that were maybe some mistakes or things that turned me off from playing the game. So I've come up with a little list here. We're going to talk about a couple that I really like and a couple that I really don't like. You know, we got Akuma on screen here. I'm not going to include... I've talked about Akuma to death. I think he was really well done. Maybe he was just like a victim of bad balance. But let's talk about one that I think, you know, pretty much everyone agrees was really amazing, which was Link in Soul Calibur 2. You know, we also had Heihachi and Spawn, who those were cool, but everyone back in the day, Link was the one that we really wanted. If you had a GameCube, you had to get Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube so you could play as Link. And this one, yeah, I pretty much agree with everyone at the time that this was such a cool collab, and it worked perfectly in the game. And why do I like this one, but I don't like some other ones, you know? Am I being hypocritical? I think there definitely is an element of like, well, I was a kid, so I was just more wide-eyed and open to everything. I'm not a cynical old man like I am now. So that was part of it, and, you know, it was still new at the time to even, like, have guest characters at all. It was something we rarely saw in fighting games back in, like, 2002 or whenever this came out. But I also feel like part of it is the fact that there's only one guest character in the whole roster, so you don't really feel like you're getting cheated. And, you know, it was only the second Soul Calibur game, and it was, you know, the game with the biggest roster size in the series so far. So we didn't really feel like we were getting cheated out of other characters to get Link in the game. So I think that's part of it as well. And yeah, but like when I look back at this, part of me is like, is this just rose-colored glasses that if they did this today, I would think it was super lame? I don't know. Hard to say, but one way or another, I really, really loved Link in Soul Calibur 2. And I think he's an example of a good crossover, even if I'm coming to that through biased or rose-tinted glasses reasons. Another crossover that I think really holds up is Mai from Dead or Alive, actually. You know, Mai's kind of been around the block. She was in Dead or Alive. She was obviously in CVS and KOF as well, a crossover game, if you guys didn't know. So Mai being in all those and Dead or Alive. But I do feel like she really works in the DOA universe. Like, she just fits in with the other characters, you know, like this is a game where, you know, everyone thinks about the women. I feel like that's kind of the thing that Dead or Alive is most notable for. And I think if you didn't know that Mai was from another game, you would just think, oh yeah, it's another like ninja-ish lady character in a low-cut top in DOA. Like, she fits in really well, and she was really interesting and fun to play, kind of similar to Akuma and Tekken that had to implement like 2D mechanics to make her work in a 3D game, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, those are some guest characters that I actually like and I think are well done and didn't really feel like they were clogging up the roster. But what about some ones that I didn't really think worked? This is, you know, shooting fish in the barrel. Everyone's talked to death about how weird this character is, but yeah, Negan in Tekken 7. What were they cooking with this? This is, to me, like one of the ultimate downsides of having like a random guest character, you know, one that's not from another fighting game or from another game by the same developer. Like, it just kind of feels like an ad, don't you think? Negan and Tekken, it felt like, you know, Walking Dead were like, here, you know, slide some bills across the table if you advertise our show in your game. That's what it felt like to me. And, you know, maybe that's how some people feel about City of the Wolves. Possibly. I mean, I'm sure they paid money to have Ronaldo in the game, right? It's not like Ronaldo needs the advertisement. I'm sure they paid money, but still, it feels like a marketing ploy, let's just say. And that's how I felt about Negan, too. Like, yeah, you know, he was kind of fun to play, like, with the bat and all. And he was very a beginner, easy-to-play character, too, which was nice for people like me who were not good at Tekken. But, yeah, it's just so bizarre. Who asked for this? Why is he in the game? He's like one of the characters that will never really be remembered or remembered for being beloved in Tekken at all. So yeah, huge nightmare, I thought. And then the other one I want to talk about that I feel like didn't really work is basically like everyone in Mortal Kombat 1, okay? People get mad at me. They say that I'm a Mortal Kombat hater, which is not necessarily true, but I'm not a fan of just the sheer amount of guest characters and the weirdness of them in Mortal Kombat 1. You know, we had like 3 superheroes. We had Peacemaker, Omni-Man, Homelander, who really to me don't feel like they fit. Like if we're gonna have superheroes, shouldn't they be in an Injustice game? But then, you know, Peacemaker's a DC character, so maybe he would fit. But yeah, like Homelander, I don't know if they could put him in Injustice. I don't know, but it's weird. I don't like those guys being in the game. I think it's weird. And yeah, like Conan the Barbarian, it's definitely a little bit weird, but I kind of get like the whole like movie thing with MK. Like cheesy older movies have a very similar feel to MK. You know, that's why we saw characters like, say, Freddy Krueger, the alien from Aliens. You know, well, first of all, those are like horror characters as well. So I kind of see how they could think that they fit, you know, in a game that's all about like violence and blood and guts. Speaking of which, am I gonna have to censor these gameplay things? Are they gonna demonetize my video for showing all this from MK? I don't know. I'll test my luck on it, but I'm not really a fan of how much of the DLC roster are guest characters at MK. It just seems strange to me. Oh yeah, and the weirdest one has to be Ghostface, right? Like, okay, yeah, it's another horror villain, but like, you know, Scream is like a parody kind of. Like to me, the sense of humor doesn't really work, and it's not like Ghostface was this like super badass guy, at least in the first Scream. I haven't seen all the sequels, but he was just this dude. It was just a dude. It's just a dude with a knife. I don't know. To me, this is like the weirdest one, and maybe the one that I think fits the least well. But overall, I don't think that many of them fit that well at all. And yeah, this might be an unpopular take, but personally, I don't really like the guest characters in MK1, and none of them have really inspired me to go back and play the game a bunch, because I really want to play against like the T-1000 from Terminator. Like, no, not really. So yeah, those are some guest characters that I liked and I didn't really like, but I want to hear, what do you guys think? Are you guys down for this new era of every fighting game having a ton of guest characters because it helps with sales, it helps to appeal to a wider audience? Or are you guys on my page here where I think it's a little bit weird, and maybe I would just like to see more originality and more, you know, of the original Street Fighter characters that I love coming back in games, and especially like City of the Wolves. There's so many SNK characters to choose from, so it's a little weird that we're seeing these guys from real life who are not even fictional characters. They're just dudes. So yeah, a little bit weird, but I want to hear what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.